they had figured out how to contain Michael Jordan.
It's very, very simple.
Jordan.
So just shut him down.
There were no secrets. I mean, everybody knew what the rules were, and that was to put him on the floor when he came to the basket.
Offensively, Jordan and Jordan goes down hard, and he looks hurt. Oh.
Get a phone call, and it's Isaiah.
Talking about 23 in red.
And he says, I finally figured out what we need to do to stop Jordan.
They were about timing. They existed in a version of the NBA where defenders were allowed to guide, bump, and collapse without ever looking like they were playing zone. Detroit didn't break the rules. They mastered them. And if you want to understand why Detroit chose this path, who the Bad Boy Pistons really were, how good they actually were, and how the system was built piece by piece, that is all laid out in part 1, link in the description. But in this part, we're going deeper. We're breaking down what the Jordan rules actually meant on the floor, and why the late 80s NBA made them not just possible, but deadly.
Chapter 1. What the Jordan rules really were.
Most people think the Jordan rules were just double teams. They weren't. They weren't one defense, one play, or one trick. They were instructions, a decision tree, a set of reactions planned before Jordan ever touched the ball. Detroit didn't ask, how do we stop Michael Jordan? They asked, how do we control him for 7 games? That distinction matters, because nobody in the league believed Jordan could be shut down. He was too fast, too explosive, too skilled. So Detroit changed the goal. They didn't want to stop his scoring. They wanted to decide how he scored. Every Jordan possession had a preferred outcome for Detroit. Make him give it up early. Make him take contact before lifting. Make him land on bodies. Make him feel crowded even when he beat his man. If he scored anyway, fine, but the possession still belonged to Detroit. That's why Jordan's box scores against the Pistons often look misleading. 30 points could feel like a loss, because the Jordan rules weren't about moments. They were about accumulation. They were about forcing Jordan to play Detroit's pace, Detroit's geography, Detroit's physical terms every single trip. And this only worked because the NBA's defensive rulebook quietly allowed it, which brings us to the environment Jordan walked into.
Chapter 2. Why this era was different.
To understand the Jordan rules, you have to forget modern basketball. No zones, no help defenders camping in space, no defenders standing the passes away waiting to rotate. In the late 80s, the NBA enforced the legal defense rules. You had to be guarding someone. If you weren't, you get whistled. On paper, that sounds like it helped scorers. In reality, it created something else entirely, because defenders learned how to look legal while preparing. Help Detroit became masters of this. They positioned defenders one step away from where help would be needed. They stayed active enough to sell man-to-man coverage, and the moment Jordan committed, the help snapped shut instantly. To referees, it looked legal. To Jordan, it felt like the floor collapsed, and passing out of it wasn't easy. Spacing was tighter, role players weren't automatic shooters, and recovery defense was aggressive. Detroit wanted Jordan to pass. They trusted the math. But illegal defense was only half the story. The other half was contact. Hand-checking wasn't a debate back then. It was the baseline. Defenders were allowed to guide ball handlers with their forearms. They could bump drivers off their line. They could make every dribble feel like a negotiation. So Jordan didn't just have to beat defenders with skill. He had to beat resistance. Every drive started with friction. That's what made Detroit's help so effective. If Jordan needed even a split second longer to explode, the second defender was already there. And once he went airborne, Detroit made sure the landing wasn't free. Not every hit was a flagrant. Not every contest was dirty, but it was constant. Enough to slow timing, enough to drain legs, enough to change decisions late in games. This wasn't chaos. It was legal pressure applied relentlessly, and now that the environment is clear, the Jordan rules themselves become easy to visualize.
Chapter 3. How Detroit executed the Jordan rules.
Here's what the Jordan rules look like, possession by possession. If Jordan posted up, immediate double, no waiting, no reading, no hesitation. The big, usually Lane Beer or Mahern hovered near the free throw line, ready to trap the instant Jordan turned his shoulders. If Jordan faced up on the wing, Detroit shaded him left, toward traffic. A guard lingered one pass away, pretending to stay home, while already leaning toward help. If Jordan attacked downhill, bodies collapsed early, not late, not reactive, early. Sometimes it was to defenders, sometimes three. Detroit didn't care if Jordan finished through it occasionally. They cared about how often he had to do it, because playoff basketball isn't about one drive. It's about what that drive costs by Game 6. Bruises, frustration, rushed reads, forced shots. Detroit accepted risk everywhere else to protect one thing: control of the series. They rotated differently every possession. They mixed early doubles with late ones. They faked help. They baited passes. Nothing felt predictable, and that was the point. Jordan never felt comfortable settling into a rhythm. Every move required thought. Every drive required a decision, and the longer the series went, the heavier it felt. That's why the Pistons didn't panic when Jordan scored 35. They were watching his teammates. They were watching pace. They were watching fatigue. Detroit wasn't trying to win the night. They were trying to win the war. But this system had an expiration date, and it didn't end because Detroit made a mistake. It ended because Jordan changed.
Why the Jordan rules stopped working.
The Jordan rules didn't fail because they were flawed. They failed because Michael Jordan evolved. He got stronger. He trusted teammates. He stopped forcing early hero moments. He learned how to punish help instead of fighting it. Detroit didn't delay Jordan's greatness. They finished forging it. They exposed the last weakness in his early game that one talent alone couldn't solve. And once Jordan broke through that wall, the rivalry didn't end quietly. It ended with silence. No handshakes, no congratulations, a walk-off that still echoes. Because when Jordan finally beat Detroit, he didn't just take the conference, he took the league. And that's part 3.